Now, SOG is one of those companies that comes up with things from time to time that can be either genius or just complete garbage. But I felt like this tool specifically, the SOG Sync I Travel, kind of fell through the cracks. When you look at the regular versions of this tool, they are relatively impractical from the use of using a knife. However, this one is designed to go on planes and places where, basically knives are not allowed. And I find is surprisingly pretty decent. The reason I think people missed it, well, let's go ahead and get into that. The SOG Sync Travel is a very unusual tool. All right. It was designed, I guess, as a belt buckle, which I think is completely impractical because of the way that they have designed this attachment system and how heavy that attachment system really is. But the actual tool itself is quite awesome. So let me explain why I think this tool completely was missed. So for starters, the base weight with all of the stuff attached to it is 141 grams or 5 ounces. 5 ounces for this, right? It's like, that's not worth it, and you're right. But the actual tool is only 2.5 ounces. So basically you're doubling the weight by having this latching mechanism. And in order to accomplish the ability to come in and out of that latch, you have to change up this pivot, which I think is quite genius, by the way, but I just don't think very practical. The truth is this tool, just as it is really quite awesome. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So this is the SOG Sync I Travel, and that travel part is very important. So this has no blades, and that's a good thing because the other version had, well, the blade wasn't very practical in use anyway. Slip joint, really, really small. I mean, what are you going to use it for? Package open? I mean, you can, anyway, not useful is what I'm getting at. But this, on the other hand, this can go into places that can. I mean, and I'm always looking for stuff that I can take with me when I travel because I just don't want to be thinking about, did I forget to take my knife out of my pocket when I go through a security stop? I just want to be able to walk through for the most part. And so having tools that are tools, which is important to me, but don't have blades is important. And also sometimes I just want to carry a dedicated knife or a fixed blade or a folding knife, whatever it happens to be. So this is surprisingly well thought out for that purpose. So let's start with the tool set, shall we? On this side, we have two implements. We have a nail file with a flathead, which actually this file is surprisingly good. It's actually more aggressive than many of the files from SOG has produced in the past. And it has a really small flathead as well as a bottle opener, which doesn't really matter because I can pop a bottle off at pretty much any flat edge on this tool. But anyway, it's there. Now, the last thing on this, which I think is quite practical, is a scissor. And this isn't the best shaped scissor. It is not the most ergonomic scissor, and it does not cut the best as far as the scissors are concerned. At some point, I will put it through the scissor gauntlet. But what I do know is that it will cut thread, it will cut fabric relatively well, and with maybe a little modification, it might be precise enough to help you with hygiene-related tasks. That's pretty much all I could expect from a scissor this small, and that's good enough. Let me zoom out just a little bit. Now, too much. This is small, like really small. Here's to give you an idea. This is only less than 2.5 inches long and only 1.5 inches wide. Okay, and the crazy thing it is a 1/4 of an inch thick, or just over a 1/4 of an inch thick. This thing is super compact. It is very easy to fit this into a watch pocket. And it almost completely takes up that entire dimension and doesn't move around. It doesn't shift. You don't even need a lanyard for it. And what's kind of amazing to me, at least, is that this folds out into a really sizable pair of pliers that are not a joke. For some reason, and I don't know why no one does this, these are some of the most rigid pliers with almost no give, no matter how hard I squeeze. And a lot of times with multi-tools, you can feel the flex in both the plier head and the the arms. This is not the case. This thing is surprisingly solid in feel. And it has more of a blunt nose tip, but certainly precise enough that if I need to apply more force than my hands can apply, it's going to do the job. Now, I purchased this on a whim because it was like $30. Like, some website was having a closeout sale, and I'm like, I want to try one. And this one made more sense than the bladed version because it has scissor. And honestly, I think it was really good that I was able to check this out because it kind of emphasizes to me how important dimensions are in your carry. This tool, being its dimension of being very thin and also not being too long or too wide, means that it fits in that coin pocket, or the some people call it that. It's actually a watch pocket. And that was sort of a concept that has been explored many times. This, for instance, is a modified Leatherman mini tool. Now, this is really cool, and obviously you can see is a little bit smaller, right? Except it's not, because when you turn it on its side, it's almost twice as wide. It's almost half an inch. And in the pocket, this thing is not all that much fun to carry. Enter the other discontinued Leatherman side clip. So the side clip is a fantastic tool. In fact, this is probably top 5 favorite Leatherman products maybe of all time. And one of the things that it does so well is just basically disappear in the pocket. Not only is it relatively light, it has no more than exactly what you need, and the pliers are very, very comfortable and easy to use. And because it's so flat, like I said, it just disappears in the pocket. So moving these away for a second, the SOG Sync I, not the Sync II, because I think that kind of defeats the purpose, but I think the Sync I Travel specifically makes a lot of sense. Now, if I could find a way to replace this pivot with something that would make this flush so that I didn't have that extra added dimension, I probably will, because I actually kind of like this tool set and generally just the functionality of this plier head. It does no more or less than exactly what I would want to complement, a given folding knife I was carrying or whatever. I'm just going to pull one off the desk here. But I don't need a knife in my multi-tool a lot of times. It's not even a matter of going into environments where knives are not allowed. It just sometimes means I would rather that space be taken up by something more meaningful. And in this case, that means a scissor. So the SOG Sync I Travel is something you might want to consider. I like it. I actually do. Now, I wouldn't carry it with this thing because this thing is, well, stupid. But the actual tool itself, kind of awesome. Not going to lie. And when you compare it to something like the Nextool Flagship Mini, it's like half the dimension in width. And yes, it's going to take up a little bit more space, but it's not the dimension that you're lacking. Like when you talk about putting things in your pocket, it's normally when you stack things that it becomes a problem. There's plenty of space left and right, but this is the right dimension to be easy to carry for a lot of people. It's damn near thin enough. Some people could carry this in their wallet. I'm not even kidding. And yes, I do know about the TAG, TAG, flat credit card multi-tool. I know about it, but this is a little bit more up my alley. It's got the right tool set for this particular thing, and it also isn't like $200, which is how much that thing costs, I think. Anyway, the SOG Sync I Travel, definitely interesting, and something that I think that maybe everyone missed, because the SOG Sync I was well, I wouldn't say flop, but let's just say it didn't garner any interest. Is that a nice way to say it? I think it's a nice way to say it. But no, this is cool, and it surprisingly works quite well. It actually has really, really good grip, and I can put a lot of pressure on it without having to be afraid that it can't take it. And everything is in line, right? The way this is set up is kind of amazing because there's no weak points here. This is the weak point, and it's far enough down that if I need to put a lot of effort, it's still quite strong. It's kind of amazing just how strong this plier head is for something so small. Anyway, something to check out for sure. For sure. Definitely one of the hidden gems that SOG has come out with. I've tried also, I'm sure people are going to ask about the Baton series, and they're great in theory. Unfortunately, they have a fundamental problem that the pliers slide back into the handles, and that's a no-no. But this is good. This particular version of their Sync series is actually compelling. And if they make a couple modifications to it, they just kind of embrace this geometry, this size, and maybe improve it a little bit, maybe make the quality a little bit better, maybe make the scissors a little bit better, get rid of that pivot. Oh, I'm for it. I like it a lot. Anyway, thanks for your time. I appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.